Exercise 906 is about variance and standard deviation. So just like the range and the interquartile range, variance is a measure of spread. And the standard deviation is just the square root of the variance. So they're very closely related. Now you've got these two formulas on the reference sheet that we visited in year 11. And I'd strongly suggest looking at your notes again on that and looking back at that as well. This treats it in a slightly different way. So in a simplified way, you can think of the variance as the average distance of the scores from the mean. So this is another way that variance can be calculated. Now, you won't really do it this way. You put the data into your calculator and you get your calculator to calculate it. But this helps you understand exactly what variance is. So this is my data set here. I've got a 3, a 7, another 7, a 9 and a 14. I've got 5 scores. I find the mean of the scores, which I've done here, which is 8. I then subtract 8 from each of my scores. 3 minus 8 minus 5, 7 minus 8 is -1, 7 minus 8, 9 minus 8, 14 minus 8. And for each of these numbers, if I was to average these numbers, I'd get 0. Because if you average the distance from the mean, this is the distance each score is from the mean, if you average that, on average is 0 because the mean is the middle in a way. It's a measurement of the middle. But what we can do is we can square these. So -5 squared is 25. It just makes them all positive and add those up. So the variance is the sum of these squares divided by the number of scores. So we find the distance from the mean, we square it, we add them up, and divide by the number of scores. So as I said, we're averaging the distance from the mean. So get the distance of each score from the mean, square it, and average that. Add it up, divide by how many. Okay, so that simplifies down to 12.8. And the standard deviation is the square root of that, the square root of 12.8, which equals 3.5777 to 4 decimal places. We do tend to give a few decimal places. Depending on the type of data, you may want more or less. Here are the instructions for how to find the standard deviation with your calculator. To find the variance, just find the standard deviation and square it. Now your textbook mostly uses SX. There are 2 different standard deviations. The syllabus says you do need to know both. So if you have done a survey on a sample, then you would be using SX, which is usually written like this. If you've surveyed the entire population that you're interested in, then you would use this one. So this is the population standard deviation and that's the sample standard deviation. Again, your calculator shows these symbols as the same size, but that's, that X is actually subscript, just like here, that X is subscript.